Buckle up and get ready for a roller coaster ride of some tasteless humor, lots of heart, and radical truth with two scrappy chicks. Because adulting is hard, but we are thinking that laughing about it is just so much easier. And we are back. It is almost Halloween. I don't know why I'm chuckling. And hopefully, my grandson will put on his Woody costume and want to trick or treat. And if not, we'll be passing out candy. So, since we're nearing the end of October, we wanted to wrap it up with domestic violence. I wanted to share a story that didn't happen to me, but it happened to my workplace. And ironically, at one time, how do I want to put this?
And this was, well, you got how long ago this was, because this is back when one company, the company that was attached to it where I worked, Polk Brothers, this was,
Yes,
ancient history.
yes. So it was 1991, and I had moved to Westmont, and this was Des Plaines. And my job was, I was the receptionist. So when you walked in the door, you had to be buzzed in by me, and there was a glass window, and I had to open the window and, ask people, what they were there for. So the day I was off at the dentist of all places, um, the girl who, I should say the lady that sat next to me, she had to man the door. And back then, did not have a cell phone yet. Probably got a cell phone a year later, and it was the bag phone, and it only worked plugged in your car. It wasn't portable. So had the landline, and I had a message, and I can't remember who called me. Somebody called me. Might even been my sister. I don't know, because I worked with my sister. And the poor lady that sat next to me had to tend my window, and this woman walks in all cut up and bloody asking for help. And they called 911, and she told them that she got out of a trunk out of the parking lot, and they're like, whose car? And it was one of the helpers for one of the delivery drivers. So they had to get a hold of the delivery driver, but be kind of discreet and tell him, hey, you need to, get back here. And like I said, they couldn't really, tell him because they were afraid of, what the guy who was sitting next to him would do to him. And so he successfully got the truck back, and then the police surrounded it and arrested him. And this woman said she had been in the trunk for, I think, 8 days, and that she was dating him for 2 months. And she had told him, take me home, and he didn't listen. And he raped her and beat the crap out of her and cut her and whatnot and threw her in the trunk, left her for dead. And he was giving rides to other people that worked in the warehouse and the office. And some of them were like saying, hey, it really stinks. What is that smell? And I don't know what he said about the smell, but they could hear almost like a knocking, and he was trying to say it was his under something's loose underneath his car. So, um, maybe it's a good thing that they didn't like keep asking him, because maybe if they discovered the truth, he would have added them to the trunk. I don't know how big the car was, but the two other people were very freaked out when they found this out. They're like, "Oh my God, that could have been us too." And the lady, how she got out of the trunk, she used, I think she said, a tire iron. and she said she survived on snacks she had in her pocket and the rainwater. I cannot imagine going that long being in the vehicle and not, I mean, I'm sure she soiled herself and was probably like really in bad shape by the time they got her to the hospital. And the scary part is I interacted with him and I would have never thought he was like that. And it's crazy because it just goes to show you. I mean, maybe after that I just became very cautious that you have no clue what a person is capable of, and they can look so nice and normal. Um, but uh sometimes they're not. They're psychotic, like something seriously wrong. So he got 30 years, and I was just doing the math, and it looks like he probably got out a couple years ago. And that is not one person I ever want to see or talk to again. And I do know this woman did do a story with the National Enquirer, and I thought I saved it, but I guess I did it. Maybe I did not want to be reminded of that, but oh my gosh, I can only imagine if I was there and I witnessed that. I'm sure I probably would have never got that out of my head, but just reading about it, hearing about it, awful. Um, so yeah, that's my creepy story. So you want to share your sad story?
Yeah, and this one happened in 1992, and it started by me getting a phone call at work that I needed to go pick up my girls from daycare because an incident had happened. I never knew uh, the mom. I never knew her child. Came to find out later that she had left an abusive relationship, had been stalked by her, and I'm not sure if it was her husband or ex-husband at the time, but either way, he was let out of jail and he swore he was going to kill her. And he went to her place of business and did just that. And then proceeded to flee from police, from the authorities. And later that day, or might have even been the next day, honestly, I don't know all the details, that he was killed in a shootout with the police. And I wish I could say that these stories were uncommon, and they're frighteningly very common. And I think that was one of the reasons why I wanted to really talk about this and wrap this up for this month, um, is that, you made a good statement there about, you can talk to these people and they seem what we would consider fine, normal, not throwing up any red flags or cause for concern. And it's because you don't know them very well. It's the people closest to them that see all these red flags or experience these things. And I think far too often, there's a lot of victim blaming going on. And that's really a problem that has to be corrected. And I think us being able to have these conversations and bring up these incidences and talk to each other. And, there's many reasons why a woman stays. It could be financial, it could be just the threat of anything happening if you dare to leave the situation. Because that's one of the things that I've been learning about. It's called fog: fear, obligation, or guilt. And sometimes you get one or two, or sometimes you're having all three happen to you. I know for me, it was all three. And it takes a lot for a woman to be able to leave that situation. I had tried one time, actually was able to leave, and then had family come and tell me, well, you have to take him back. And when I look at certain situations and certain people, whether they're public figures or private people that I hear about, it's like there's still the victim blaming going on. Well, why doesn't she just leave? Well, I can tell people from personal experience it's far, far harder to do that, especially if there's children involved, that the system kind of keeps you stuck and that abuser gets to still have control over your life and over your children's lives. And I think people need to try and be a little more understanding. And by that, I mean to try and recognize what's happening and pay attention to what's happening to the people in your life, family, friends, even coworkers, because for me, it was two people that I worked with that recognized the cycle of abuse that I was in and offered to help and actually sat me down and said, you know, we're recognizing this behavior and we want to know what, you know, if this is going on. And I said, yeah, it is. And they asked me, well, when do you want to leave? And I'm like, right now. So within a week, me and my kids were out. And that's far from the end of the story for sure, more of the beginning. But I had a lot of I think I'm in a position now to better articulate that I see a lot of victim blaming going on, and we need to be more along the lines of how can I help? Sit this person down if you can, privately, ask the question, you know, is something happening? If so, let me help you. And sometimes they will say no just because they are so terrified of what will happen if that person finds out they are even thinking about leaving the situation. And I don't know what the statistic is, but I think the last I had researched this is that a woman can leave up to 7 times before she's able to finally make that break cleanly and permanently, where her and her children and family are not subject to the continued abuse, threats of violence and violence itself. And I think all of us at one point or another can say that we've known somebody that's gone through this or we have experienced this firsthand ourselves. So that's my request, I think, for everyone to be a little more diligent, a little more aware. And instead of looking at that person and being angry and frustrated with them because they're not doing something, oftentimes they are just flat out not able to make that move, to do that. And it's going to take some help because I can sit here and tell you today I don't know what would have happened to me had these people at my job not approached me and asked me what was going on. And then asked me, well, when do you want to leave? And they helped me to leave. They facilitated that and helped me get the pieces in order to help us do that. So it's a process and it's not easy. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to pack my bags and walk out the door and all is going to be hunky dory. It's very complicated. So that's what I wanted to say. And there are resources available, and I want to tell people, number one is naturally the authorities. That's going to be one of the best things that's going to help you is to connect with your local authorities and file a complaint. You need to get this documented. For me, I had to get picture taken because I was covered in bruises, and that was going to be able to help me, support me in my claim in my case had I stayed in the state that we were living in at the time. But due to a couple technicalities, I was able to leave the state and not be subjected to continued manipulation and control at the hands of the abuser authorities. And then the authorities can then put you into contact with your local township, city, or village where they have emergency shelters where you can go. And I have to say, that was kind of the last thing I was worried about. I thought anything is better than what we were living through. I thought it doesn't matter where we go. I just wanted to get me and my children out alive and in one piece. And we ended up in a beautiful emergency shelter. We were the only ones at the time. I left on December 22nd. And I was actually told, you know, women usually don't leave during the holidays. They try to wait it out to get through the holidays. And I was like, mm-mm, nope, I had my chance and I took it. And they did such a wonderful thing for us where they had, the home decorated where we stayed, gifts for the kids. They had volunteers coming to do shopping for me so I could cook for my children for the holiday, for Christmas. And I was getting reports pretty much daily that he was calling and harassing the authorities and calling every shelter, he could, I guess, find in the not newspapers, sorry, phone book. And I was hearing reports saying that, he was telling them that I was abusing him, I was abusing the children, that I kidnapped the children. Then he would say that he had had a heart attack. I was his next of kin, so they needed to contact me immediately. Then he was trying to get himself into a shelter. I mean, he just was relentless. And where I worked, the people had to hire private security because he would show up and start stalking the people at my prior job. So he was quite a handful for them, and quite threatening, and so much so that I was not allowed to like poke my head outside of the shelter. Like I had to stay in, and the kids had to stay in because they were that concerned about me and our safety. But I have to say, the environment that we were in this, it was a beautiful 5-bedroom home in the hills of California, and everybody was so warming, so welcoming, so supportive, and they helped me to work with the local authorities. Like I said, there was two legal technicalities that allowed me to leave the state with my children. And that's why I say it's so important for you to get with the authorities. That has to be your first step. And then they will help connect you with resources for emergency shelters, temporary housing programs. I will do more information on that based on my experiences and what enabled us to go from complete and utter homelessness and having nothing but a small bag of clothes to our name to being able to rebuild my life, get a job, have, permanent housing, and keep the kids in school for more than, a few months to a year at a time. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. For us to be more caretakers of each other, keep an eye out for each other, and to please not keep blaming the victim. It's not helping the situation. It's just reinforcing the situation. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
I thought of another situation, a girl we went to high school with. This was after we graduated, and she had broken up with her boyfriend. And I think she started seeing someone else, I'm not sure. And he stalked her and stalked her, and he ended up killing her. I think he's still in prison, I'm not sure, but um, we didn't have stalking laws. Trying to think. This was in like around the same time. Well, no, this was probably the late 80s that this happened. And like the first time I can remember hearing of like a stalking was there was a show that an actress, Pam Dauber, did, and the girl that played her sister, once I'm trying to think, was the show called My Sister Sam or something like that? And that was like one of the first
That
actresses.
sounds familiar. It does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That was one of the first actresses I heard of being stalked, and he essentially killed her. And I think it was after that that then stalking laws started to like go into effect. And um as for me, the other women that the donor was involved with, he treated them the same way. Like we could probably get in a group chat and all our stories will be similar. But I have talked to a few of them and he has had did that too. And I'm like, It's a shame. You think when somebody loses a lot in their life, you think that they would like change and not do that anymore. But some people, like what they say, a leopard never loses its spots.
A leopard never changes its spots.
Yeah. So, I wanted to share there is, I don't think they were around when I was going through the domestic violence. I feel like when I was going through it, there wasn't much to protect because all what was done is, okay, one of you has to leave. Well, of course, I made him leave because my kids didn't want to be alone with him. So there's an organization, and I talked to them last year at this expo called Breaking Away, and they said, have you thought of volunteering? And I haven't, excuse me, I'm yawning here. I haven't gotten back to them about volunteering, but I think I'm going to reach out to them. And there is also in October, and I think we missed it, Take Back the Night. I don't know if this is nationwide, but I know every October they do this in my town. And I'll just read a little description. It says the purpose of this event is to spread awareness and education about domestic violence. And it affects 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men in their lifetime. So I want to say because we're nearing Halloween, it was probably towards the beginning of the month. And I will have to make sure that I go to that next year and get involved with the organization. But like the sad part is I belong to a couple of my community groups, and I cannot tell you how many different anonymous posts I've seen. Hey, I'm getting out of a bad situation, domestic violence situation, and moving into my own place. And they need stuff like furniture and that, or they need to get out of a bad situation, where do they go? And I was just like, God, this is horrible because it seems like it's getting worse and worse and worse. And um, it's pretty scary, especially when you're with somebody who's a narcissist and constantly puts you down, tells you you're no good. Nobody's going to want your luggage, meaning my kids. Well, he was wrong. And just making me feel like worthless. And it didn't help that when I went to his parents, they just gave a blind, do we call it blind ear or blind eye? I guess blind eye, right?
Yeah, just turned a blind eye to the whole situation. Yeah, I had that too.
Yeah. Like, oh, he does no wrong. And I was just like, you gotta be kidding me. And
Well, and that's the thing too. Like they can turn a blind eye, but they blamed you. Like I was blamed by my
yeah.
family. Like I could control another grown adult. And like, can you not see that I am totally not in control about what's happening right now? But they made me responsible, made me the one that needed to, take care of the situation. And clearly I could not do that.
And honestly, I don't think they believed me. And it's a shame, because it's 3 against 1. Me and my kids. That's our truth. But getting divorced, I will never forget. I was lucky that he left and I had 6 months of peace. And then he came back, what do you want? I'm like, I want a divorce. And I was lucky that he was ignorant and didn't understand. He was giving me full custody, which there's no amount of money that you could give me. Um, like there's no monetary value of giving me full custody of my kids. And then, of course, when he figured that out after it was all said and done, he tried to mess with me and it didn't work and he was put in his place by the police because they said stop it. And I will not never forget the first night we were in our place and just the three of us and the dog and I think did we have two cats? Yeah. Yeah, because it was Ashley's cat and my cat. So, dog and two cats and two kids. And I was like, ah, can breathe. We're home. There's no more asshole, excuse my language, coming in that door and, I just, yeah, that was like, you remember those moments when you can finally breathe. Um, and I'm envious of people who get a divorce and it's so amicable and they get along and they've moved on with other people. And I've even heard of some where they all get together for holidays. It's like one big happy family. And I was like, you know what? That's great because those kids won't be messed up, you know? And I tried, but I could not trust him. And he would send his flavor of the week to pick up the kids. And I finally put my foot down and said, no, if you can't pick them up, then you're not taking them. And take me to court because, I'll let them know that you're doing this. I'll also let them know how you are playing around with child support and also talking bad about me to the kids because you don't. I mean, no matter what the situation is, you do not do that because the kids are a product of you and this other person. And by bad mouthing them to the kids, you're going to screw up the kids. And let me just say, um, one of my children has gone through therapy because of this. And I've probably mentioned before that both of my kids are estranged from the donor, and that will never change. And it is best for all of us because we have peace. But it's a shame that we had to get cameras on our house because my son felt like he was going to mess with his car. And this is going back, what, 2018. And all because they didn't wish him happy Father's Day or acknowledge his birthday. And I'm like, why? Why would they? And then he shows up here huffing and puffing and wanting my son's bike back that he gave him as a gift. And he didn't get it because it says in the text. Kevin saved the text, says gift. So he didn't get it and he had to leave. So,
Yeah,
I,
document, 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 right?
mm-hmm,
That's the
yeah,
other thing too. You've got to document as much as you possibly can. I think I still have all my court papers and everything because I just didn't ever want to let that go just in case that
yeah,
person should ever rear their ugly little head again.
yeah. And now that we have cell phones that can record audio and video, I mean, even, oh, I'm sorry, I'm yawning, but even try to do that. And there is the domestic violence hotline. And I will give that number and I will also put it in the show notes. The domestic violence hotline is 800-799-7233. If you can't um, call, you can text 88788. And if you Google domestic violence, it pulls up their website where you can immediately hit the button for the number to call, or you can hit the text button or the chat, and then you can also go to their official website.
That's good to know because sometimes You only get a very small amount of time, and if you need to make that call or make that text, it's good to get that, have that memorized so that if that opportunity presents itself, you're able to have that information and take action, whether that be for yourself or for someone else.
And you know what? Don't let anyone tell you what you can and cannot do. Um, don't ever feel, oh, I can't do this, I can't leave. I didn't have family. Well, I had a sister, at least an hour away. No one knew what was going on until we were going through the divorce, and then I told them. Because I actually did hear him on the phone wanting to put a hit out at me. So that's when I'm like, okay, this is done. I need to get away from him. And I always watched my back and made sure that um I don't know, I had trust issues. I did not want to go through that again, and I didn't. And I'm trying to think, where was I going with this? Oh, so there's been people that I've met in my life where they're in a bad situation, and they're like, whether it was domestic violence or not, or just not happy, and they wanted to leave, and they're like, I can't leave, I can't do it. And you know what? I didn't think I could do it. I didn't, I did not have children and get married to get a divorce, you know? I came from a generation that you got married and, you stuck it out in that, but um not with this. When it comes to getting the shit, excuse my language, beat out of you, yeah. Um that's when you do not stay. And you know, um we can sit here and say woulda,
And
coulda,
it's
shoulda.
important to recognize those red flags and not ignore them early on so that you're not ending up stuck housing wise, financially stuck to this person or even emotionally attached, especially if there's kids involved. To try and
Yes.
get those warning signs ahead of time. And like first red flag, I think you need to be like, no. And like you said too, like we didn't repeat it after that, although I did have two back-to-back relationships. So for me, I just opted out, and that's why I'm single today. I just opted out. I thought, I got to work on myself.
Hmm.
And my kids needed me more than I needed to have another relationship because that was the last thing I wanted. And that's still the last thing I want is one. I'm so happy to be single and independent on my own. And again, that's for me. Some people do really well and, do have happy relationships moving on from, domestic violence and other people like I've just opted out.
Single with cats. Jess.
Yes.
Um, but yeah,
My
like
happy
I s-
place.
yes, like I said, don't ever think you can't do anything because you can. You and I are living proof that you can get away. And people's like, how'd you do it? Well, I don't know how you were, but I was like, I don't have time to think. I just have to do it. I just have to keep moving forward and
Yeah.
do right by them.
Well, and you had two.
Yes, you have
I had
four.
four. I
Yeah.
was completely and utterly on my own. Didn't get child support. Yeah. And I did it. So I don't want anyone, like you said, to feel, oh my gosh, I have one kid, I have two kids, I have three kids, I have four kids, or I can't leave. What am I going to do? There's always a way. And like you said, we didn't have time to worry about the hows, the what, where, why, when, how. We just had to keep putting one foot in front of the other because we just wanted to keep moving forward and rebuild our lives. I know I did. I thought my kids didn't sign up for this. I've got to do whatever I can to, get a stable home for them. And that, again, that's another reason why I stayed single, because that was the only way that I could guarantee that I could keep moving forward without being stopped or held back in any way, shape, or form, financially, physically, mentally, emotionally. Like I said, my kids needed me more than I needed another relationship. So Working, taking care of my kids, taking care of myself, and, working through these programs so I could make sure I had housing and keeping my jobs as a single mom of four kids. Um, it was not easy. And with that being said, it's still possible. So I want anyone within earshot of what we're saying to know that take it one step at a time. Help is out there. And like you said, don't anybody tell you you can't do something. You can.
Yes. Okay, so with that all said and what we shared, I will be sharing some links for more information. And now that we're moving into November, we will probably be doing episodes on like health and wellness, and we'll be getting into the holidays. So um, maybe discussing about how to try not to overeat.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well,
All right,
this,
everybody. Thanks again for joining us. And feel free to contact us and let us know if you have ideas, things that you'd like for us to touch on, topics for us to research and talk about, and things, people you maybe would like to hear from and have us interview. I do have an interview that's all set up for the energy enhancement system, and that will be coming out shortly.
all right. Until next time, chicks.
We love our scrappy peeps. So thank you all for joining us and becoming part of our flock. So please like, subscribe, and share. And if you don't like us, unfortunately, yo mama. But if you do like us, we look forward to seeing you next time on Two Scrappy Chicks.